Hey everyone, TheWubbzler here. I know it's been a while since I made a video, and an even longer while since I made a video quite like this one, but I wanted to talk about the recent shutdown of a company that I used to love with all my heart, but eventually grew to resent because of the constant changes that they've been making. And with everyone else making their own video, and me being 2 weeks behind it like a total schmuck, I wanted to share my 2 cents about what I think of the shutdown of Roosterteeth. Back in 2009, I was scouring the internet for videos of a game that I was very much enjoying. Little Big Planet. And as I was watching video after video of cool levels to look up later, I came across a rather peculiar video. Little Big Planet Red vs. Blue. At first the jokes didn't really land, and I wasn't all that interested as a whole. But then I saw it was part of something much, much bigger. As I delved through the rabbit hole, I began to fall in love with the series known as Red vs. Blue. By the time it was the year 2010, I was very much a huge fan of the series, and soon the same thing could be said for Roosterteeth. I loved everything this company produced, from the humorous series of Red vs. Blue to the fun gameplay videos of Achievement Hunter. And once I learned of the various other shows that they had already made, and were already in the process of making more of, you better believe I was excited as hell to watch it all. From the Supreme Surrender, Strangerhood, Panics, all the way to Camp Ruby, and X-Ray and Vav. All of it was just fantastic to me, and either made me laugh nonstop or cheer on the badass scenes that had me entranced. And you better believe I was hyped as hell when I saw that they were making the movie LazerTeam. Hell, I actually convinced my parents to actually watch the movie with me. I have so much of its lines and scenes just ingrained into my memory from how much I loved it and how much I rewatched it. Of course, Red vs. Blue inspired a great amount of my UUSF series, along with a handful of other stuff that I discovered in the early 2010s. But the one that influenced the story and setting above it all was definitely Red vs. Blue, which convinced me to go for a more sci-fi comedy route that had themes of badass undertones between the characters. It's not an exaggeration or a lie to say that if it wasn't for Red vs. Blue and Rooster Teeth, the USF would not exist as it is today. Hell, it might not even exist at all. Unfortunately, the year 2015 will forever be infamous as it holds one of the worst days of my life. Monte Ohm, the main animator and badass stylist who helped create some of Rooster Teeth's greatest scenes and moments, as well as the main creator of the series Ruby, had passed away. I'm not lying when I say I was bawling my eyes out from the news. I even got hysterical at times because of it. I was not proud of it. It took me a while to finally accept and move on after the tragic news, especially since I saw how Monty's passing affected so many different people from around the world. But me and the rest of the community managed to heal. However, Monty and his tragic passing drove me to make the USF a thing, and make the minds behind one of my favorite shows proud as I try to create what his work helped inspire. I was very happy to see that it was far from the end for Rooster Teeth as well. They managed to continue making their series as great as they could, from the chorus trilogy of Red vs. Blue to a variety of other things that they managed to nail perfectly. They even began recruiting new Let's Players into their company's family. I loved Funhouse the moment I saw their videos, and there's still so much of their content that I quote to this day. Of course, I was definitely bummed out when Ray left Achievement Hunter, but I still follow his stuff over at twitch.tv/RayNarvaez Jr., formerly known as Browman due to some controversial BS. Regardless, I was still loving a lot of AH and Funhouse, and even when they made political jokes, I was still enjoying it. And this was back in 2016 when I was way more conservative, so if anything, I should have hated Rooster Teeth at this point. But they must have been doing something right, because it still kept convincing me to come back, and I was still enjoying the content as a result. However, sometime between the years of 2017 and 2018, I began to feel like things were changing, and not for the better. I still enjoyed a good chunk of Rooster Teeth's content, but as time progressed, I could see them starting to pander more. I know how this is starting to sound, by the way, but just hear me out on this. At first it was subtle and done in taste, but soon it became blunt and began to hinder the story of whatever show I was watching. Worst yet is that it began to bleed into the other stuff. Let's Plays, the podcasts, AH, just in general. It felt like a heavy shift from the fun-loving conversations that felt genuine and enjoyable to listen to the near constant tones of commentary that felt like it was trying to either lecture me or bitch about something that I had no say or any experience in. Like, if you're pissed that the dolls of Moana that Disney is selling is not having an accurate skin tone to the character from the movie, I hate to break it to you, but that's an upper-class rich person issue. You're gonna flip when you see those German porcelain dolls and Japanese paintings. I used to fucking dance a jig whenever I have enough money to just buy another set of Legos. Regardless, I assume it was more of a change in era than it was of personality. Despite the annoyance and lack of entertainment it brought me, I just tried to shrug it off and continue watching whatever it was that I was watching. And the political commentaries were getting much worse. Like, There were times where I paused the video and wish I could argue about some of the stuff they said because of either how warped their view of it was or how unapologetically biased it felt like they were being about it. But like I said prior, despite the frustration and issues I had, I just kept watching and hoped things would bounce back. The shows I felt suffered the most were Ruby and Red vs. Blue. Both of them were great, but slowly started to grow less interesting and become more confusing and annoying the more I watched them. I especially noticed the changes during Volume 5, which I thought was good in my opinion, but 6 was definitely not. And for what little I saw of Volume 7, 8, and 9, the rest of the series actually gets worse from there. I especially felt frustrated by the various missed opportunities for characters to evolve or for the world to be better developed, and anytime we did see any form of development, it felt super ham-fisted and arbitrarily done. It's especially obvious if you compare Ruby to another East meets West anime story, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which I will make a separate video comparing the two another time. Even the characters felt like they were just devolving. At first they had their own unique personalities and traits, Ruby being the excited child who fans out whenever she meets another huntsman or huntress, Weiss being the prissy, stuck-up girl yet still having more ethics than her family, Blake being this edgy goth girl who has a shadowy past, and Yang being this badass party girl who's always down to fight. But as time went on, they kind of blend together till they weren't really a team of individuals, but rather a single girl that was cloned into 4. Ruby was definitely the first and the worst to suffer from Roosterteeth starting yet steady decline. As for the series that introduced me to Roosterteeth, as well as one of my favorite shows ever, of all time, Red vs. Blue continued to stay strong through a good quantity of its series, with seasons 1 through 14 being debatably flawless. However, while season 15 was good, it definitely wasn't as great as the previous seasons, with 16 being okay and 17 being fine-ish? And don't even get me started on Red vs. Blue 0. Don't get me wrong, for 18 plus seasons, a score of 77% ain't bad in terms of quality, but with Roosterteeth literally removing their videos from YouTube and trying to encourage people to use their site, it's very clear that the glory days of Red vs. Blue are very well behind us. Now, some would argue that it's my nostalgia that's making me dislike where the shows were going at that point, but I doubt that's the case considering the stuff from my childhood were fantastically continued or revived after years of silence, such as Psychonauts 2, the Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 remake, and Spider-Man No Way Home, all of which were just fantastic and kept up the styles of what made those particular stories great to begin with. And for those that might argue it's purely because of the political stuff, my rebuttal is that I enjoyed the Harley Quinn show, Apex Legends, and Mortal Kombat 11. Even though I never played 11. Stories that were clearly leaning a certain way on the political spectrum, but still did their stories super well in a way that felt respectful to the source material. This basically added on to my long list of reasons to no longer support Roosterteeth. The main ones being the more controversial shit that they kept doing for some reason, which again, I will cover in another video someday. What was worse was how they doubled down on their decisions, and either insisted that they were in the right, or flat out ignored whatever questions were being brought up by their own audience. With the inclusion of the very heavy social commentary on their podcast, and even Barbara's "if you don't like it, don't watch it" tweet, which she specifically seemed to use for older fans that felt like the shows were changing too much, but didn't even try to say anything to the more toxic fans that were flat out starting shit with people and insisting that Roosterteeth's creations were without any flaws. I really started not to like Roosterteeth, and what it was becoming. On top of that, a lot of their content, like the Red vs. Blue PSAs and the Camp Camp Holiday Special, where they spent more than enough time bitching about certain groups of people, who are total douchebags, but it's like making fun of the Big Bang Theory. It's super low-hanging fruit and warrants virtually no disagreement or consequence other than annoying your general audience, especially by insisting that the sky is blue. And even stuff that did something similar were still doing a better job of entertaining me. Again, like Harley Quinn, Apex Legends, and Mortal Kombat 11, because they didn't stray away from what made those original things great to begin with. They still nailed the characters, and their personalities, and showed interesting takes on basic stories we are too used to. So ultimately, Roosterteeth wasn't special, nor was it breaking any new grounds. It was being annoying for the sake of being annoying, especially when they began to steer away from whatever it was that Monty had planned for Ruby. And yes, he did have things planned for Ruby. He originally planned for Team Juniper to fight Raven, originally planned for an epic fight between Yang and Adam at the end of Volume 3. He also intended for Jean to witness Pyrrha's death, not Ruby. Second verse, same as the first. I was really not starting to like Roosterteeth anymore. So why am I making this video? Simply to respond to their reactions of the company shutting down. How Barbara and Jeff finally cried that Roosterteeth was finally closing its doors and saying its goodbyes, to those tearful videos and farewells that they gave. Go fuck yourselves. You fuckers explicitly said deal with it to anyone who disliked where the company was going, and when asked about the layoffs, increased price of the first, or any of the other scandalous stuff that's been happening at Roosterteeth nonstop, you guys simply either gave us some cheap as fuck soulful response, or actively ignored it altogether. I ask you this, Barbara Dunkelman and Jeff Ramsey. Do you guys still stand by your statement of the fans just overreacting and being naysayers? You guys stood your fucking ground when the company was criticized and refused to admit that there was anything wrong with where the company was going. You made your beds and said, this is fine, I can live with this. And when the company is going under, you expect us to feel fucking pity? Go fuck yourselves, genuinely. You can't just go boo-hoo after insisting that everything is going to be fine when the vast majority was pointing out error after error and then go, who would have seen this coming? When the obvious predictions came to be. You assholes made your bed, the least you could do is fucking lie in it and not act surprised with the results. So farewell, Roosterteeth. Thank you for all the wonderful memories, but to the very thing you became, good fucking riddance.